Hello you, welcome to Geekism. In Planet Coaster, let's build. We're going to do some of the suggestions that people have had in the last couple of episodes to tweak the castle ready for the fireworks. And one of the great suggestions, a few people suggested this actually, was to actually sort of theme the screens in a castle theme to tie it into the main building. Really great idea this was actually, rather than just having them sort of placed there with random just sort of bit of scaffolding around them, although we keep the scaffolding at the back because I like it, and I wanted it to be a little bit realistic at least, but the front now has this sort of this castle cover around it. It's nothing major, very light still. Again, I want the screens to really speak for themselves here, which we will be implementing in the next episode, but more on that later on. The next thing we're going to do is go back to the castle itself and do a lot of detailing. I was looking back at the castle and I'm really happy with the shape of it. I think it creates a really nice silhouette, but one thing I wasn't too happy about was that it was a little bit plain, and I had a good think about it, good little play with it, and realised that really it just needs more detail basically. So we do a lot more work here with window pieces and bits of sort of castle ornaments and just all different things really to kind of develop the structure on the main couple of towers here, at least anyway. The walls themselves stay relatively bland, plain. Sorry. You know, here the main detail happens on the towers. So a couple of people have mentioned in the comments that the castle may work quite nicely if it was a little lighter, and I actually agree. I just don't know whether or not I can face going over and recolouring all of it. I don't know. For a few reasons. One, I think it would look a little bit friendlier in the daytime, a little bit lighter, a little bit more fanciful. But also, as somebody quite rightly pointed out, it will be much nicer when we light it up to have a bit more of a sort of blank canvas. So not necessarily making it white, but just a slightly lighter grey, maybe with maybe a slight pinkish hue. I think it's a really good idea. Whether or not I do it, I don't know. And if I do it, it won't be on camera because it'll just be a case of clicking all the pieces and changing the colours. Might be something I sit down and do one day if I've got a little bit more time next week. But I don't know. I think it would work. Whether or not it's something I can bring myself to do, I don't know. So like I say, the castle is pretty much finished. It's not finished from the back. Again, it's something that, sorry, this is going to be confusing. I have already recorded the end of this video because it's a live action bit. So I'm possibly going to repeat myself a couple of times, so I do apologise if I do that. Basically, what happens in this video is we finish off the castle build here in a time lapse, and then I finish the front area where the stairs make their way up to the bridge, and also we create a little a water feature set to music, and it was kind of like a test run for the fireworks really. I wanted to start having a play with the display sequencer, and you may have noticed that I haven't done a tutorial on the display sequencer like I said I would. You'll see why a little bit later on. I'll be honest with you, I'm having a lot of trouble with the display sequencer. I'm finding it very difficult to use. I don't find it what's the word, not organic, but a way, sort of easy to use and simple to use, and intuitive, that's the word, at all really. I really am quite struggling with it, and it's worrying me a little bit for the fireworks, but I'm going to hopefully press on and get through it, and we'll see. Here we are moving on to the larger tower, and just again using some of the windows together and able to create a bit more detail. Again, nothing major, just enough to give it a, there's not big slabs of stone where it isn't really being affected or being, sort of decorated at all. Using some of the nicer pillar pieces here. This is always something I was going to go back. I know a few people have said, with the video it's very plain, but it was never finished. It was always the plan was to go back and do a detailing pass, as I call it. But yeah, really happy with how it's turned out in the end, and I think it looks really smart, and a nice mix between the sort of ridiculous Disney castle and something a little bit more usable, livable, I guess, although it's still very fanciful, it's still very sort of stylized, but just the little touches I think make it look quite nice. This is pretty much all we're going to do over here now. We'll finish off fireworks, then we're going to head over and finish off the pirate area and put a sort of a pin in that before we come back to the fantasy area. Loads of really great ideas for the fantasy area that people have suggested in the comments. some of them are really, really good ideas. One of them was to do like a dragon coaster that sort of breaks through the castle walls and heads over some of the water. Love that idea. I really think that's something we can do. I wasn't planning on having a coaster in this area, but one, the dragon coaster really fits the fantasy theme. Two, it's a family coaster, and this is going to be a very family area, and it's going to have lots of kiddie rides in it because of the theme as well. The idea of it breaking through having some sort of dungeon where it's kept, and it's smashing through the dungeon into the water. Love it. Really great idea. Thank you so much. For a couple of people suggested sort of bits of that all sort of came together to give me that idea in the head of having this coaster breaking through. Really great ideas. Love the fact that you guys are sort of really enthused by this series and adding ideas and wanting to see stuff and suggesting things. It's really awesome. Here we're doing a bit of detail into the front of the castle. Like I said, I'm not going to go all the way around because wherever we stick this coaster and do some work there with the dungeon walls and things, that's going to obviously affect it. But here we've just got some basic windows, and also there's really nice sort of really long draped flag pieces, I guess. They've probably got a special name, those long flag pieces, I'm not too sure. Here I realised very quickly that the wall pieces aren't going to fit here. It's going to be a very custom job. And it works out quite nice in the end, although it still needs a little bit more detail. So again, it's something I'm going to mention that later on. I know I am. But yeah, any suggestions once you see it finished, please let me know. So this little area here, the sort of open space at the moment, is eventually going to be all capped off, and this is where we're going to place our little water feature. And it's nothing major, it's just a little fountain that's some special effects water pieces in them that we tie up to a bit of music. Very short, little 10-second thing, really simple. Like I say, I really had trouble with the display sequence, so I'm really looking for inspiration there, or just sort of like a bit of a point in the right direction. Really, I would much prefer something like a timeline type thing, I guess. I know that's how they did it in RollerCoaster Tycoon 3. That's not a game I played. I only played 1 and 2 for some reason. I think pretty sure it's just the fact that my PC wasn't good enough to play 3 at the time. I didn't really have an amazing PC when I was younger. So I think that was the reason why. But I know it has a timeline. Personally, I would prefer that because I use timelines a lot in video editing, in sound editing. Everything I do for YouTube uses timelines, and it just seems like quite a sensible way of doing it. I don't know. Obviously, I think what they've done here is they've taken the trigger, the trigger sequence bit. I don't know what the word is. The mechanic, the trigger mechanic. I guess I'm stuck on my words when I'm recording these voiceovers sometimes. The trigger mechanic, and just sort of tweaks it to make this. And I don't think it's good enough. Basically, I'll be honest. I just don't think it's good enough, and I'd love to see them go back and maybe have another go at it, another pass at it. But I don't know. People are making incredible firework displays, so maybe it's just me. Who knows? Maybe it's just me. Can't get my head around it. Here we go. Then using some of the fountain pieces here. They're slightly, I don't know, you can't affect the colour of these pieces, and they're a little yellowy, but I still think they work quite nicely. And it sort of breaks it away a little from the castle, because the castle's very sort of purples, greys, lighter colours. Here, this sort of this yellowy colour is a little bit different to the rest of it, but I actually think it looks quite nice, and I'm happy with it. And I wanted to have some fountains on the back wall there, so I was looking at a few pieces I could use. I did actually, I ended up removing the footage. I did try taking a photograph of the water, transferring it to a billboard so we could make this whole area look like it was underwater, or it had a level of water. But again, I really struggle with it. The billboards are a little funky in how they transfer colours over. And I've been trying to use the RGB template with Photoshop and stuff like that, and I'm still having a little trouble. Stuff comes out much lighter. I know it's something that Rudy Rankamel's been doing a lot of work with in I know Koali Beach's episode where he did the awesome aquatic area. He was saying that he's having a little trouble trying to get some of the colours right, and I think I need to go back and have another go at it. Unfortunately, I haven't had that much time to record this week because we went camping. So I've been away this week. We had a little break away before the baby comes along. So I haven't had that much time to play this week. So every sort of minute I've had on the computer has been spent just sort of trying to get a video done, really. So I think I'm going to have another pass at it. Maybe when I've got a bit more time, and really try and use some billboards. Obviously, I'm working on the billboards that we're going to use for the fireworks. They're coming along quite nicely, actually. They're working quite well, but they have no frame of reference, I guess, so it doesn't really matter how they come out colour. You know, if the colours are a little light or a little dark or a little yellowy or a little reddish, it doesn't really matter too much. But I mean, the one thing I think billboards have got a big scope for is, for instance, taking a screenshot of that castle wall piece there, putting into Photoshop, adding some cracks, and then putting back into Planet Coaster, so you've got you can have a cracked piece every now and again, or something like that. You know, adding vines or adding holes with eyes poking through or something. You know, the options are endless, really. But that only really works if you can take them out of the game, put them back in again, and they keep the same colours. Really, if they're changing colours, it's going to be a very difficult thing to work around, unfortunately. So here we are adding in the water fountains themselves. Like I say, it's not much. It's a small setup. I really wanted to just kind of get used to the display sequencer and really just figure it out. And I thought this was a nice way of doing it. A simple way of doing it. Here, though, I couldn't find a nice fountain that sat on the wall nicely, so I made my own using the witch's heads. And also, it kind of ties the witch into the castle a little bit. She's obviously going to be a part of the story of the fireworks. You know, the princess versus the witch. So I just thought it was a nice little way. Maybe she could have been the magic user in the castle who would do spells and things for people, but she was banished away, and now she's an evil witch. I don't know. You know, it's a very light story. It's fireworks. At the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with them. But I like the idea of doing a little bit of something like that. Adding a bit of lighting here. We're keeping the lighting relatively light on this area because the light of the castle itself is going to change during the show, hopefully, as long as I can figure it out. So I wanted this area to be relatively lightly lit, so to speak, you know, lightly as in not many lights. So it's really just a case of pointing out the statues here and just sort of adding a bit of colour into the darkest areas there. Lights and water sprays don't mix very nicely in this game at the moment, so I haven't tried to sort of light those up. It's the water themselves don't actually go off during the night time. I've set it so it only goes off during the day. Again, I'll talk about this a little bit later on in the live section. And a little bit of light here. I love these little up lights to do this sort of thing. I think that looks so cool. I actually go back, I think, and take the light off the back piece there. I think it's just a little bit too bright. Tweaking these a little, just to pull them out a little bit, make the pillar a bit more noticeable. I think it works out quite nicely. The main thing I need to do here is do something to the back wall. That's the piece I struggled with the most. Oh, here's a few different up lighters. I was just having a look, see which one looked the best. That was my favourite one, the sort of slightly wider but still relatively defined one. Here we're just going to do the front piece here. Again, not much going on here really. It's just castle wall, so the stairs don't look like they're floating really. That's all we're doing there. The curve doesn't quite fit, unfortunately. It's a little bit tight for the path, so I thought, well, we'll make that a thing and do a little pillar there as well. And it kind of looks like a little sort of observation area. Obviously, the path itself isn't actually connected to it. There you can see, I did have a little go at getting the path to it, but it was just a bit too wide, unfortunately. So instead, we just leave it as a little open area. It still needs a bit of work there. Maybe some flowers or maybe a bench or something like that needs to go there just to sort of cap it off. But yeah, it's just, the idea was to make it look like a little bit of a observation area. People can just sort of hang out and have a look at what's going on. Finish it in then. That's the relatively simple part of it. The tricky bit is going to be the back of it. You'll see in a moment. There's a little bit here needs doing as well, and we had to put a fence on it. I had a go at using the fence that came with the path, and it actually looked pretty neat. The only problem was it clipped through the wall there underneath the fountain, so couldn't do it. So I'm having another little go at that, but just couldn't find anything I was happy with, so dropped it in the end. So yeah, we come down to this here and just create our own little wall using one of the newer fence pieces. Again, I think it turns out quite nicely. It's something subtle. It's really more for I wanted it to look like a safety feature as opposed to looking artistic or show offy or anything like that. It's mainly just so that kids don't fall off the path, basically. So use this fairy tale wall piece here. I think it works out quite nice. And again, it's just a case of moving it, copying it, pasting it around to all the other areas as well. Nice and simple. It's there as a utility as opposed to really looking the part. Although I do think it looks pretty good. We move it up that way as well. And that's about it for that, really. I think the last sort of thing we're going to do in the time lapse is is work on the rear of this, the last sort of little bit that is filled in here. It's just a case of copying this piece over and moving it around. Again, it needs a little bit of capping off at the top. I can't quite figure out what to do though, so any suggestions here for the top of that? At the moment it sort of staggers down. I do end up putting slopes on there, so it's a little bit of a smoother transition, but again, it doesn't feel capped off. And I had a little play around off camera with something to do, and inspiration's not coming to me there. So please, any suggestions, feel free to screenshot something in your own game, chuck it over to me on Twitter. I'm at Jonty Sparrow. I love taking your ideas there and sort of implementing them, and just this is not necessarily a community park, but I love the fact that I can take ideas that you people, what do you mean you people throw at me, and it just helps fill in the gaps where I just have a bit of a brain fart one week and just can't find something that I'm happy with. There you go. See, we'll add the slope pieces there. There's a piece in the middle there where it doesn't follow the slope down. That's just because the tier itself is a bit more extreme than the path. So we had to do that, and I don't mind that. So I don't mind that at all. I wanted to add one more column, one more pillar into the castle. There's a slight gap there that I just felt like it needed something. A very simple pillar there, so we add that in, tie it into the back, because again, the rear of this is going to be seen as well. So I spend a little bit of time making sure it looks good from the back actually, and this is really the first time I've done this with the castle. I actually think it just, again, still needs a lot of detail. That'll come in a later video. Here I've got these lovely minuet, I think they're called, minette or something like that, pieces that we haven't really used much yet, and they're a little bit jarring. They're quite different to the castle pieces, but we take the colours from the stone itself, and I think it actually is quite nice, although that length there is just too much of a solid colour. So we use these awesome pieces. They're so useful, this little piece, this sort of castle fortification bit, to carry it around, and I think it actually turns out really nicely. And we just sort of pop a roof on it. It's relatively simple, but just that shape isn't a shape we've used so far, and I just think it works out really quite nice. Just a case of figuring out exactly where it's going to fit, and the camera goes a bit janky if the mouse is a little bit past the castle and it's on the floor instead. The camera sort of whizzes around, so that's why the camera's going all over the place here. But that is pretty much it. I think I just had a window here, but that might need a little bit more decoration. Come back to it later. So we're going to cut to a live point now. So here we are, a slight live portion of the Let's Build series. This isn't something we do very often. In fact, I don't think I've done it before, apart from adding names into the Hall of Patrons. But I wanted to kind of go into a little bit more detail with the display sequencer. So I did say originally when 1.3 came out that I was going to do a tutorial on this thing. I'd be honest with you, I'm really struggling with it, and it's the reason I haven't done the tutorial. I'm finding it really quite janky to use, and yeah, I'm struggling with it, and it's worrying me a little bit, because obviously we're building up towards this huge fireworks show that I thought, we'd be able to do, and I am still going to do it, or at least try hard to do it, but yeah, really having trouble with it. I just can't get my head around it, and it's annoying me, really frustrating me, because I kind of feel like you've all been waiting for it, and I feel like I'm letting you down a little bit, but yeah, anyway, it's really freaky. So here it is, the display sequencer, and so I've got a little bit of music that's 16 seconds long. The idea would be this is going to be like a little water show that happens on the hour every hour or something like that. I've actually set it to happen every 4 hours or something, so it happens 3 times during the day, because if you leave it running, even on the slowest speed, it actually takes 40 minutes of game time to do. And 16 seconds is about 40 minutes, so it goes off every 20 seconds and it's 16 seconds long, so it got a little bit annoying. So I've set it to go off every 4 hours. That seems to be about right. It happens a few times a day, and it's it's quite nice. The piece of music itself is just something I've got from Epidemic Sound, which is a setup that YouTubers use to get royalty-free music, and it sounds like this. Not sort of wishy-washy, watery music. And like I say, it's 16 seconds long, and this really isn't detailed at all, but this has taken me about 2 hours to figure out, so maybe I'll get better at it the more I use it. I'll show you the whole thing. So first of all, let's pause the game a sec, and then we'll play it, and then we'll close this down and get rid of the display so we can see it a little better. Let's kind of come in here so we can see. Should give you a better idea of what it looks like. It's a really simple thing now, I promise you that. Here we go. That's it. That took me about 2 hours to do. Honestly, I'm just really struggling with this thing. I'm going to keep trying and getting better at it, but I'm afraid that's all I've got to show you. I feel like it's a bit of a disappointment, and I'm sorry. At least the castle looks good. I'm really kind of happy with how it's turned out. It's still not quite finished. We still need to do a little bit of work around the back, which we will do when we come into the fairy tale area. But for now, at least from that sort of view, it is done. So I'm going to keep working on fireworks, you know. But yeah, the display sequence, man, oh god, it's funky. It really is. But like I say, I'll keep working on it. Any tips you can throw my way, please do in the comments. Any videos that people have done, I've looked for, you know, tutorials on it, but not really found anything fantastic. Like I say, without sounding big-headed, I'm normally the guy that does the tutorial. Yeah, I'm really struggling to get my head around it. I didn't want to do a tutorial on something that I don't know how to use, you know. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, I think it looks nice. You know, the actual castle itself looks really good. I'm kind of happy with this, although I want something here on top of this. I'm not quite happy with how that's finished off. So something maybe similar to here on this side. Yeah, I might do something there. Again, any suggestions, pop it in the comments. I always like using the suggestions I get from the comments, so anything you can think of. At night, I think it looks pretty good as well. We'll knock it down at night as well. I think it looks quite nice. Subtle, but that little bit of lighting. Don't want to do too much lighting because the castle itself hopefully is going to have lighting as part of the show, but again, at the moment, I'll be lucky if I get one fireworks to shoot up at the minute. Like I say, I'm going to keep working on it, folks. Please bear with me. I'm sure I'll get my head around it in the end. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give us a like. It really does help out the channel. And if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe. Any thoughts, queries, or suggestions, pop them down in the comments. And if you fancy chat, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at John T. Sparrow. Don't forget to join in with the Geekism community through our Discord server. You'll find the link in the comments there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.